She's been involved romantically with a half dozen of the most gifted, charismatic, attractive men in Hollywood. And it's very interesting because every one of them has dumped her.
I didn't know how, and I was also afraid of men.
Really?
Oh yeah. I was afraid of men, yes.
Woody Allen has paid a long personal tribute to Diane Keaton after her death at 79 on Saturday. In an essay for the Free Press, Allen, 89, recalled meeting Keaton in 1969 during rehearsals for his play Play It Again, Sam, their 5-year romance, the 8 films they made together, including some after their relationship ended, and the enduring friendship that followed. As time went on, I made movies for an audience of one, Diane Keaton, he wrote. I never read a single review of my work and cared only what Keaton had to say about it. Allen described Keaton as unlike anyone the planet has experienced or is unlikely to ever see again, saying her face and laugh illuminated any space she entered. He added a more personal note on loss. A few days ago, the world was a place that included Diane Keaton. Now it's a world that does not, hence it's a drearier world. Still, there are her movies, and her great laugh still echoes in my head. Keaton died after falling ill at her Los Angeles home. She had been out of the public eye for several months. A source told Variety that although no illness was publicly announced, her health declined quickly, and many close friends were unaware she was ailing. Her death came as a shock even to those nearest to her. The essay touches on lighter, intimate moments too, a memorable Thanksgiving poker game with her family, for example, and on how their paths diverged. We had a few great personal years together, and finally we both moved on, and why we parted only God and Freud might be able to figure out. Keaton publicly stood by Allen when renewed attention surfaced around a 1992 allegation from Dylan Farrow. The matter was investigated and dismissed by 2 official bodies and no charges were filed. Keaton said at the time, "Woody Allen is my friend, and I continue to believe him," and encouraged revisiting a 1992 60 Minutes interview for context. Allen has long credited Keaton with profound influence on his work. In his 2020 memoir, he called her his North Star. When presenting her with the AFI Life Achievement Award in 2017, he said, "The minute I met her, she was a great inspiration to me. Much of what I've accomplished in my life I owe for sure to her. Seeing life through her eyes, she really is astonishing. This is a woman who is great at everything she does." Keaton herself spoke warmly of their partnership in 2023. "He was so amazing. It always was really special to be with Woody. He was great. He was everything. And he remains so to me. He gave me everything. He really did. Woody made it loose. That helped me enormously." If Allen's lines feel like the opening of a secret, Keaton's life supplies the rest of the map. A woman who turned eccentricity into a method, who made silence and small gestures carry moral weight, and who lived by a stubborn independence that often surprised those expecting Hollywood convention. The mystery isn't scandal. It's the simple, stubborn question of how someone keeps themselves intact when fame keeps asking them to change. Diane Keaton was born Diane Hall on January 5, 1946, in Los Angeles. Raised in a conservative Catholic household, she watched her mother, Dorothy, step briefly into local applause and then return to a life that sidelined artistic longing. That image lodged early, the danger of vanishing inside someone else's life. Keaton left Southern California for Manhattan after studying at Orange Coast College. When Actors Equity already listed another Diane Hall, she took her mother's maiden name, Keaton, as a deliberate claim, "I will be remembered." On stage in Hair, she refused to strip when the production's nudity was expected. That quiet refusal mattered. She would perform, but not at the cost of herself. Her film career threaded from Lovers and Other Strangers to a turning moment few could have predicted, Francis Ford Coppola casting her as Kay Adams in The Godfather in 1972.
"It was an abortion, Michael. It was a son, and I had it killed because this."
With only a handful of scenes, she became the story's moral center, her restraint amplifying the violence happening elsewhere on screen. Then Annie Hall.
Hi.
Woody Allen shaped the role with her in mind. She answered with wardrobe and manner drawn from her own life, oversized shirts, slouchy trousers, a fedora, an offbeat cadence that made awkwardness feel intentional. The film won 4 Academy Awards. Keaton took Best Actress.
I just would like to say thanks to Woody and thank you. Thank you very much.
Her personal style migrated into culture. A private sensibility quietly reoriented mainstream taste. Keaton's life often read as a string of small refusals rather than grand declarations. She resisted Hollywood's tidy scripts. She never married. She adopted children after 50, and she held fast to friendships and collaborations that others abandoned when controversy rose. Those choices weren't spectacle. They were decisions made in everyday rooms and rehearsals, in ways that shaped both performance and person. Woody Allen's tribute hints at something private and steadfast, an influence felt in the margins. From that hint, the story widens, how a woman who guarded certain truths could still become unmistakable in public. The rest of the story follows that tension, how quiet fidelity to the self became Diane Keaton's most visible work. Diane Keaton's life collected pressures early and quietly. Raised in a conservative Catholic home, she watched her mother, Dorothy, step briefly into local applause and then return to a life that sidelined creative longing. That image hardened into a refusal. She would not vanish into someone else's version of normal. The industry demanded conformity anyway. At 19, she was asked to lose nearly 10 pounds to keep a role, a routine command that seeded a 5-year struggle with bulimia. She later spoke about binging and purging, and about drinking in ways that served as escape. Those admissions are hers, and shape how we read the choices that followed. Career highs arrived with ruthless speed. Francis Ford Coppola cast her as Kay Adams in The Godfather in 1972, and in a few quiet scenes she became the moral counterweight to a sprawling criminal saga. In The Godfather Part 2, Kay's revelations and her refusal to accept Michael's world deepened that moral center. A closed door, a look-small acts that registered as large losses, Keaton's restraint gave those films their human anchor. Her work with Woody Allen was different in degree but no less consequential. Their partnership produced 8 films and a particular shorthand, improvisations that felt lived in, wardrobe choices that became character, small behavioral turns that rewrote a line. In Allen's words, "As time went on, I made movies for an audience of one, Diane Keaton." That sentence reads like testimony to a collaboration that blurred the line between creative critique and emotional dependence. It's important to note, and to be precise, that their romantic relationship lasted about 5 years, yet their artistic partnership and friendship continued long after. Controversy shadowed that friendship. When a resurfaced allegation from 1992 against Allen reappeared during Nine Pugly, "Woody Allen is my friend and I continue to believe him," she said, and pointed viewers to the 1992 60 Minutes interview. The allegation was investigated at length, dismissed by 2 official bodies, and no charges were brought. Where speculation exists, it will be labeled as such. Keaton's loyalty, however, was unmistakable and personal. Personal life and public expectation often crossed in ways that tested her resolve. She loved earnestly. Relationships with Warren Beatty, Al Pacino, and Woody Allen are part of the record, but she never married. "I didn't want to give up my independence," she said. At 50, she adopted her first child, then another, becoming a single mother without a conventional template. Those choices were practical, stubborn, and intentional. She preferred making a life that fit her terms rather than conforming to an expected arc. Her struggles with body and alcohol were not plot devices, but persistent truths she acknowledged. They informed roles and affected how she navigated fame, crafting an approach to performance that emphasized nuance over glamour. She favored characters who were resilient and flawed, women who survived by wit and interior grit. That sympathetic through-line runs from Annie Hall's awkward honesty to Something's Gotta Give's late-life romance. Through awards, fashion influence, and decades of work, Keaton never surrendered the small refusals that defined her. Her eccentricity became language: oversized shirts, vests, loose ties, and a fedora that read like punctuation. Those choices made her look like a private person who happened to be visible, not a public persona constructed for mass consumption. Rumors and tabloid narratives sometimes tried to simplify her. Why no marriage? Why attachments without altar? But the fuller picture is a life organized around authorship rather than approval. She resisted disappearance, endured public scrutiny, and kept returning to work that required honesty over artifice. That stubbornness carried costs, loneliness, recurring struggles, and the constant need to define herself on her own terms. Yet it also produced the work and the voice that made her indispensable, a presence whose small decisions altered films and whose private steadiness shaped a public legacy. There are quieter legacies than awards, and hers is one of them. Diane Keaton's influence lived in manner and decision, the way a pause could hold a scene, the choice to wear a hat that read like punctuation, the refusal to let a career define the limits of a life. Her fashion became shorthand for a sensibility: slouchy shirts, vests, oversized glasses that made eccentricity legible and generous, not merely theatrical. Her performances offered the same lesson: vulnerability and control can sit together, and restraint can be louder than spectacle. She kept working on her own terms. From The Godfather's small, devastating entrances to Annie Hall's idiosyncratic openness, from directing unstrung heroes to late career roles that traded youth for complexity, Keaton showed that longevity in art comes from curiosity and constancy, not reinvention for its own sake. She adopted children in her 50s and built a family without a conventional template. She stood by collaborators when controversy demanded easy decisions, insisting on nuance where headlines preferred certainties, where rumors circulated, reports and investigations were the record, where personal struggle existed. She spoke of it with a mixture of candor and reserve. Her life suggests a simple thesis. Independence is not absence but authorship. She refused the neat plotlines Hollywood offers, marriage, reinvention, tidy redemption, and instead composed a life of repeated small choices that added up to something vivid and uneditable. That stubbornness produced costs and solitude, yes, but it also made her work truer and her presence more singular. Woody Allen wrote of her as an audience of one. Perhaps the truer measure is that she became an example to many. She taught a generation that eccentricity could be coherence, that refusal could be a form of fidelity to the self, and that public life need not dissolve private integrity. Her laugh, her face, the particular rhythm of her speech, those are the echoes that remain in theaters and living rooms, in films that keep offering new viewers a glimpse of someone who would not be made small. If you think of Diane Keaton as an instruction manual for living deliberately, it is a spare one. Choose what matters, protect it fiercely, and accept the consequences of that choice. The hats, the pauses, the quiet refusals, those were not affectations, but declarations. They made her unmistakable. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button, leave a thought in the comments below, and subscribe while you're there.